Hey guys, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Dolidze versus Hernandez just wrapped up, and I'm going to go through the card and give you guys a recap and breakdown of everything that happened this event. So let's just get straight into it. And opening up the prelims was Cody Brundage versus Eryk McConico. So I said that Cody Brundage was going to get this one done by round 2 TKO. I just thought that he had a bit more ability when it comes to pressuring forward, and I think McConico is a guy that if you pressure too hard on him, he will sort of wilt and fold and get caught. It happened in the Uros fight. I kind of saw it happening here. I was actually wrong. Cody Brundage lost this one. Eryk McConico won. Very close split decision though. Honestly, you could score it either way. I just scored towards Brundage, but I could see how you could score it to McConico, so I'm not going to scream robbery or anything. So the first round opens up, and almost instantly McConico sends a massive straight right down the middle, lands cleanly on Brundage, knocks him down, has him quite hurt, and from there Brundage just grabs the leg and sort of spends most of the round holding McConico up against the cage, taking his leg, trying to get a single leg or double leg. But ultimately the ref jumps in the middle of the round, separates them back in the middle on the striking, and barely anything's thrown from there. Brundage does take McConico down, holds him against a fence using back control for a decent part of this round, and in the final 30 seconds Brundage does get McConico up against the fence where he starts nailing him with these really big shots and knees in the clinch. But it was a very competitive first round. I still score it towards McConico. I thought he did a bit more damage when it came to the two of them, but a very competitive round. Second round opens up, and early in the round McConico gets Brundage up against the cage, which kind of backfires because when Brundage has it back against the cage, he starts absolutely unloading on the back foot, sort of tagging McConico with these really big shots, and actually had him backing up himself. And for the rest of the round, Brundage holds McConico up against the cage before taking him down in the center of the octagon and holding him there for the final minute. This was probably the clearest round of the fight, and it definitely went to Brundage. Third round, McConico instantly pressures Brundage against the cage and sends some really big kicks up against like the guard of Brundage while he's holding his guard up high. He lands this big straight as well and a knee that hurts Brundage, folds him over a little bit. And then McConico just holds him against the cage for the round, with the ref separating the two with 2 minutes left. And then back on the feet, they're just trading big shots one for one. McConico's blitzing in, landing a big shot, while Brundage sort of stands back, catches him on the counter occasionally. And while it was a really, really close round, I think this was probably the closest of the fight. I honestly thought that Brundage did a bit more damage here, and I thought the final seconds of this round were enough for him to take it. Either way, it goes to a split decision. McConico just takes it. I'm not going to scream robbery. I could see how you could argue 1 and 3 were McConico's. But it was really weird because all three judges, they had weird different scorecards. One of the judges gave McConico the second. No, two of them gave McConico the second, which is crazy because I thought that was the clearest Brundage round of the whole fight. But it is what it is. McConico, decent win. Brundage, yeah, he looked alright. Average fight. Next fight. And following that, we had Gabriella Fernandes versus Julius Stoliarenko. So I went with Gabriella Fernandes for this one by decision. I just thought if it was going to go to a decision, Fernandes as well-roundedness would carry her through to taking it. And I was correct here. Gabriella Fernandes won this one, 29-28 decision. Pretty impressive win. So first round, very, very slow. Low volume, not really much thrown. Fernandes is circling around on the back foot mainly, occasionally landing sort of a single shot down the middle, while Stoliarenko is constantly kicking at the lead leg, granted in higher volume. But later in the round, Fernandes starts landing better, particularly with her body kicks. They're landing square, causing a lot of visible damage, and Fernandes ends up pushing forward in the final seconds to take back the round with some really good shots. So first round, probably Fernandes. Second round, early on in the round, Fernandes manages to cut above the eye of Stoliarenko. I don't know how, I think it was a jab. It didn't even look that powerful, but it happened, and despite it being another fairly low volume round, Fernandes is constantly landing and was landing with much bigger shots, while Stoliarenko sat on the back foot, not really throwing back, and for that reason, Fernandes likely won that second round as well. And then in the third, it was another strong start from Stoliarenko, where she's pushing forward, initially landing more, with the round being her strongest by far. But as the round went on, Fernandes started to slowly take over, landing nicely in combination, as well as constantly defending the takedowns from Stoliarenko. And while this final round was close, I still think that Fernandes takes it, and when it goes to the decision, Fernandes takes a 29-28 decision. Good win for Fernandes. Not the most entertaining fight in the world. Nothing wrong with it. It was just a bit low volume, but yeah, kind of an average fight. So next fight on the card. Up next was Uros versus Gilbert Urbina. So I went with Gilbert Urbina for this one by round 3 TKO, and it was just mainly because I didn't really trust the chin of Uros. I thought at some point he would get dropped and then put away, or just put away in general, getting knocked out. I was actually wrong with this one. Uros won this one, first round KO as well on top of that. A very surprising win here for him. So the first round round opens up and instantly Urbina drops Medic with this straight right. It actually looked like he was going to finish him. Medic falls backwards, manages to scramble back up to the feet. And while Medic starts sort of backing up with Urbina trying to like catch him and finish him, he starts landing his own pretty good shots on Urbina, especially with some of his big counter shots. He was tagging Urbina and Urbina was sort of visibly phased by them. And then with a minute into the fight, Medic lands this super fast sneaky left hand that connected cleanly with the chin of Urbina, put him down, put him out badly. Medic took a very impressive win here, a very surprising first round KO. I did not expect that at all from someone like Medic. Was it the craziest fight? It was a pretty decent fight. The KO was pretty nice, but it wasn't anything that I haven't seen before. Yeah, decent fight. Next fight on the card. Next up was Joselyne Edwards versus Priscila Cachoeira. So I went with Joselyne Edwards for this one. I said by round 2 submission. I just thought her ground game was going to be the differentiator when it came to the two. I did see a little bit of competition in the striking, but ultimately I picked Edwards for wrestling. I was actually correct with this one. Joselyne Edwards did win this one. Granted, it was by a first round KO, a lot earlier than I thought it would, and not even by the method, so surprised me there. So the first round opens up and instantly Edwards shoots in but gets sprawled on from Cachoeira. It did look like early on Edwards was going to try and out grapple her because the striking is pretty even. But either way, Cachoeira sprawls her, and then Cachoeira actually ends up pushing forward on Edwards, landing some big shots, but then also at the same time, she'd get caught with these big counter shots and not have her guard up when they would land. They'd land perfectly, land clean, just Cachoeira would sort of eat them because she has a pretty good chin. And predictably, around halfway through the round, Edwards lands this big left-right hook combo, with the first one dazing Cachoeira badly, and then the second one just putting her out completely. Very impressive, stylish first round KO for Edwards. One of her better wins. This was a pretty fun fight just in general because they were both sort of coming to try and finish each other early. But yeah, Edwards looked really good this one. Not much else to say though. Next fight on the card. Next up we had Elijah Smith versus Tomoyoshi Kazama. So I went with Elijah Smith for this one. I said by a first round KO, primarily just because of how filled Kazama's resume is with these first round finishes over him. And I thought Elijah Smith was actually pretty decent going into this, and I got this one dead on. Elijah Smith did win this one, first round KO, granted a really nasty KO, which I didn't expect. So when the fight opens up, they meet in the center, and Smith very quickly catches Kazama with this big knee to the head, but Kazama manages to take Smith down, sort of using the knee. And on the ground, Smith actually manages to reverse and get top position, starts nailing Kazama with some really huge ground and pound. I actually thought he was going to finish the fight here, but it keeps going, and while Kazama does keep threatening this sort of leg lock, to stop the ground and pound from Smith, it only results in Smith just sitting on top, holding top position, racking up control time. And then later in the round, when Kazama attempts an armbar, he loses again and just starts getting nailed with even more ground and pound. Once again, I thought he was going to get put away here as well. Very, very dominant sort of start to the round from Smith. And with a minute left, Smith lifts Kazama up from bottom position, lifts him up into the air, stands up, and then just brutally slams him down in a way that sort of reminded me of Rampage Jackson. He sort of tucked his hand under the chin and just slammed the head down directly into the canvas. Kazama's head bounced off, like the back of his head bounced off the octagon. Light shut out almost instantly. There were two pretty nasty follow-up shots as well from Smith. Very, very scary knockout win for Smith. Very impressive first round finish as well. Granted, the odds put this guy at like a very heavy favorite, while Kazama was like a very insane underdog. So I mean, this was kind of expected, but a nasty win nonetheless for Smith, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here because he is quite young in his career, and after a win like this, he might be making it towards the 15 soon. And closing out the prelims, we had Julius Walker versus Rafael Cerqueira. So I said that Julius Walker was going to take this one by round 1 TKO. It was more on the fact that Rafael Cerqueira gets put up against the cage in most of his fights, and then if you hit him with maybe a 6 or 7 piece combo, he'll usually fold and give in and you'll win the fight. I was actually correct with Julius Walker here. Granted, it went to a decision, but it was a complete domination from Walker. So the first round opens up, Walker pushes forward early, and it actually had me worried that he was going to TKO Cerqueira early in the fight. But Cerqueira actually manages to sort of push back, lands nicely with these counter shots, pushes Walker back. And with the fight shortly after going to the ground, Walker manages to get top position and then just constantly threatens submissions. He holds top position for most of this round. And while Cerqueira looked good early on, he was just being completely controlled on the ground. Walker winning the round just based off control time. He landed a bit of ground and pound, but it was mainly the control time that won him the first. Second round opens up and Walker gets the fight to the ground early on again by kicking the leg out from under Cerqueira. He kept kicking at the leg early in the fight, so it sort of gave out in this second round. And from there wasn't much else to say. Walker held top position pretty much the whole round. The fight returned to the feet halfway through in the final sort of minute, but Walker caught Cerqueira with a big shot and took him down again. Took another round based off control time. And then in the third round, there was an actual sort of switch in the momentum. Cerqueira started really strong, landing really nicely over the top of Walker that had him sort of hurt, stumbling backwards. And Cerqueira managed to defend any panic takedowns from Walker here. And just continued to tag him with these big shots, having Walker hurt for a good maybe 30 seconds circling around. But shortly after this, Walker clipped Cerqueira with this big right hand that dropped him. Walker jumps up, gets some more control time from top position, and when it seems like Walker has this round in the bag, Cerqueira sort of lands this big overhand right on Walker that stumbles him quite badly, has him on shaky legs. I thought he was actually going to get put out here. Ends up panic shooting on Cerqueira, and while Cerqueira could have definitely taken this round back, he actually sells it. He jumps the guillotine while Walker's trying to take him down, ends up on bottom position, and from bottom position, once again, he just gets controlled by Walker. Walker holds top position, wins this one through control time, also did a bit of damage, but mainly control time. It goes to the decision. Walker takes a 30-27. He's actually a bit better than that Alonzo Menafield fight would lead you to believe. I mean, he actually looked really, really good in both areas on this fight. Granted, a bit open to get chinned, but decent performance from both fighters. Cerqueira surprised me, but it wasn't the craziest fight ever, so yeah. Next fight on the card. And now opening up the main card was Eryk Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan. So I said that Christian Leroy Duncan was going to take this one by decision win. I just thought out of the striking, he was the better fighter, and I couldn't see the fight staying on the ground the whole time. So for that reason, I thought he was just going to school Anders on the feet. And I was correct with picking Christian Leroy Duncan. Granted, it actually ended a lot earlier than I thought. First round TKO, very impressive win for him there. So instantly, Duncan looks a far better striker in this fight. He's constantly sending shots to different parts of Anders, targeting all the different sort of leg, head, body combinations. And while Anders did look very reserved and on the back foot and barely threw anything, it's when Duncan sort of follows him up to the cage, lands this straight followed by a knee, that Anders kind of grits through the pain and takes Duncan down, where he secures the back, and it does sort of look a little bit concerning for Duncan at this point. They end up clinching against the cage for some time before they separate, and after they separate, Duncan lands this big spinning elbow out of nowhere, lands very clean on the head of Anders, has him hurt badly with him sort of stumbling around the cage, and then in the corner of the cage, he just starts getting nailed with shots. He's two in particular that dropped him and had him sort of on the brink of being out. And then the ref jumped in, stopped the fight, TKO win in the first. Very impressive win for Christian Leroy Duncan. One of his better performances as of late. Anders looked pretty bad this fight. Outside of the wrestling, which only sort of happened for about 30 seconds, he didn't really have anything to give Duncan adversity. So one of the better fights this card. Not really much to say about it though, so we'll move on. Following that, we have Miles Johns versus G Matsumoto. So I went with G Matsumoto for this one. I just thought he would be the better volume fighter, while Miles Johns really only throws when it's a big shot, and most of the time he doesn't even land. So while he does do quite a bit of damage, he definitely wouldn't be able to outvolume someone like Matsumoto, and that's why I thought would give the fight to Matsumoto. I was actually correct. G Matsumoto took this one. Decision win, split decision win at that, but I actually thought it was a lot clearer, and the judges' scorecards were a complete mess for this one, so take that how you will. So the first round opens up. Johns opens the round really strong here. He lands the better shots on the feet before taking Matsumoto down midway through the round and holding him there for a good portion of the round. Granted, when he did actually take Matsumoto down, he got caught in a pretty tight guillotine, but he managed to escape that. And then back on the feet, Matsumoto was really just struggling with the range of Johns. Johns would blitz in, land this one big shot or two big shots, and then blitz back out again. And Matsumoto couldn't really find the range with his jabs and kicks due to that. And despite a very strong end to the round from Matsumoto, he started to come back a little bit here, but Johns was just consistently landing better and bigger. And on top of that, he did rack up quite a bit of control time this round, so I'd say he definitely took that first round. Second round opens up, and while Johns is landing the biggest shots to the head, Matsumoto begins investing in the body, particularly with his body kicks and knees. He actually had Johns hurt a few times with these kicks, and they sort of allowed him to land to the head a bit more when Johns would lower his guard to protect the body. And on top of that, Matsumoto almost catches Johns in a guillotine again in this round when getting taken down. Johns sort of takes him down and then leaves his head there to get guillotined. It happened in the first round and happened again here. And Matsumoto actually uses this guillotine attempt to put himself back onto dominant positioning here before returning to the feet, so sort of negated that grappling attempt from Johns. And as the round went on, Matsumoto got better and better in the striking, with him likely taking the round just through volume, but it was still at times a little bit competitive, so I could see how that one could sway either way. And then in the third round, within the opening seconds, Matsumoto takes the legs out from under Johns with a leg kick. He was sort of targeting the legs earlier, and it's sort of shown in this round with Johns really being weak on the front leg. And this round plays out very similar to the second. John's landing big here and there, but more times than not, he was just overextending and getting caught. Meanwhile, Matsumoto staying one step ahead in the volume and his shot selection particularly, and he took this round due to that. Surprisingly, it did go to a split decision. I thought it was very clear first round John's and then the following 2 round Matsumoto. One judge literally did the complete opposite, giving Matsumoto the first round and John's the last 2, which I don't know how you could do that. Maybe he mixed them up, I don't know. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty clear-cut decision win for Matsumoto. Very impressive performance from Matsumoto here. He's really showed how he can adjust to the fight. And yeah, this was one of the better fights of the card. Still nothing crazy, but yeah. Next fight. Up next was Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. So I went with Andre Fili by decision win for this one, and really it was only because Christian Rodriguez constantly beats people who he shouldn't be beating, and then the people that you think he definitely has a way to win, he somehow loses, and that's why I picked Fili. And guess what happened this fight? Exactly what I predicted. Andre Fili took this one decision, split decision. Granted, I don't think it was that close. I thought it was a pretty clear Fili win, so once again, weird judging. So the first round opens up, surprisingly strong start on the feet from Rodriguez. He's instantly finding the range, landing on the chin of Fili, which is kind of hard to do because Rodriguez was a much shorter fighter. And Fili kind of looked a bit reserved in this first round. He didn't really throw much to start with. As the round went on though, Fili started tagging Rodriguez from range, even managing to sort of catch and hurt Rodriguez at multiple points with his counter left hands. Had him hurt against a cage at a point in this round, and as the round went on, it just looked like Fili was picking up in the striking more and more. He landed bigger shots, especially in that later half, and likely took that round because of it. Second round opens up, Fili's landing way better shots at the start of this round, combined with constantly defending takedowns from Rodriguez. It was a very strong start from Fili. As the round went on though, Rodriguez would occasionally land a big shot that would sort of reset the momentum of Fili, to which Fili would slowly sort of build it back up again in the fight. But despite the resistance from Rodriguez late in this round, I'd still probably give it to Fili, with him constantly landing clean on the head of Rodriguez. Rodriguez occasionally landing, but that was what it was, occasional. So I had it 2-0 Fili going into the third, and Rodriguez instantly starts putting on the pressure in the third. He starts getting Fili up against the cage, where it sort of land a good shot or just clinch him against the cage. But surprisingly, midway through the round, it's actually Fili that starts trying to push for the takedowns, and he manages to get Rodriguez down and holds him on bottom for about a minute. And while Rodriguez is landing a lot better on Fili this round, Fili's just constantly taking him down, putting him on bottom position, racking up about half the round in control time, likely winning this round, but this was very, very close. I could see Rodriguez taking this third one. And when it goes to the cards, it's a split decision. Surprisingly, Fili takes the decision. Not even surprisingly, Fili takes the decision. Fili takes the decision. Surprisingly, it was a split decision. I thought it was pretty clear that Fili won the first and second, and I even thought the third, but you could argue that one. But yeah, the scorecards were a bit of a mess on this one as well. And after that, we had Iasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill. So I went with Angela Hill for this one. I thought in the striking she would be the better striker, and while Lucindo could present a grappling threat, I couldn't really see it being anything that Angela Hill couldn't deal with. And boy, was I wrong with this one. Iasmin Lucindo won this one. Decision win, dominant decision win. She looked far better in the striking. Hill didn't really have any moments on the feet. Yeah, it was a weird fight to watch. So first round, at range, Hill looks very solid on the feet to start with this round being mostly Lucindo keeping it in the clinch. She was either attempting a takedown or landing some knees in the clinch on Hill. Hill would occasionally land, but more times than not, they'd get into these close exchanges. And then Lucindo would sort of start throwing these like crazy, like 2-3 piece combos with a lot of oomph behind them in these pocket exchanges. And would land very cleanly on Hill, really doing quite a bit of damage. And ultimately, that's what won her this first round, these very close quarter exchanges where Hill wouldn't maybe throw one punch, but wouldn't really throw anything. And Lucindo would land 2 or 3 decent shots. Second round opens up, and from early on, Lucindo is landing these big combinations on Hill in the pocket again. Hill does give some resistance when she starts hurting Lucindo with body kicks and securing a guillotine while trying to take her down. But she doesn't manage to lock it in completely. It gets back to the feet. And it was Lucindo entering the pocket and landing these clean 4-5 piece combos, which Hill really couldn't deal with. Would occasionally land back, but nothing crazy. And more times than not, she'd just sort of have to take the punishment from Lucindo and back up again to reset. And Lucindo took this round again. Third round, similar to the prior rounds. Midway through the round though, Lucindo does get Hill to the ground, and for the rest of the round she just holds Hill on bottom position. Nothing really crazy happened from there, just racked up a lot of control time, won the round based off that, and when it goes to the decision, Lucindo takes a 30-27 decision win. Very dominant performance, granted not the craziest one to watch. The third was especially bad to watch. It was just Lucindo holding top position, nothing really else. Hill looked really bad this one though. Usually Hill puts up quite a bit of resistance on the feet. She looked absolutely hopeless when it would enter distance here, because Lucindo would land like 2 shots before Hill could even get the first one off. Yeah, this was kind of a weird one to watch, but yeah, not amazing. And now we have the co-main event, Steve Erceg versus Osbourne at bantamweight, should I add, and that will be very important soon. So I went with Steve Erceg for this one. I said by round 2 TKO. I just saw Osbourne being too easy to put away, and I think Erceg is a guy who is very skilled. He just got put up against the best of the best, and that sort of made him look bad with his recent resume, but I still had faith in him. Steve Erceg won this one, a decision win. I think it honestly could have been a split decision. In fact, I think it should have been a split decision. I don't know how the judges agreed on this one and not some of the other fights, but we'll get into it. First round, very slow, patient performance from both fighters with sort of these jab cross exchange combos. Nothing really happening on the feet to start with. Midway through the round though, Osbourne catches Steve Erceg with these really clean shots on the chin. He starts laying these hooks around the side of Erceg's sort of guard, and would really hurt Erceg. At one point, he actually stumbles him against the cage on weak legs. Erceg sort of panic shoots in, grabs a leg while Osbourne starts like nailing him with shots to the head. And to make the round even worse for Erceg, when attempting to trip Osbourne, Erceg ends up putting himself on bottom position, eats some more big shots on the ground. At the end of the round, Erceg does get Osbourne to the ground and takes the back and attempts a rear naked choke, but really it wasn't enough to take back a round where he kind of got beat up on the feet and even almost finished on the ground. Definitely an Osbourne first round. Second round, pretty even start to the round. Both are landing equal on the feet, being about 50-50 when it came to the cage clinch time. Osbourne was probably landing a bit bigger, but Erceg was definitely landing better volume. And in the later half of the round, it becomes Erceg's volume versus Osbourne landing these big shots here and there, especially on the counters as well. Erceg would land maybe 1 or 2 good shots, and then Osbourne will counter back with a really powerful sort of hook around or overhand to sort of break the combo off. But this round was ridiculously close. Honestly, this is why I thought it was split decision, but Erceg just barely took it in my opinion. He was just landing a bit more. Osbourne was kind of missing more times than not with his bigger shots. And then we move into the third, which was a much stronger round for Erceg. He was sitting down a bit more on his shots, switching up what he was throwing, slowly picking away at Osbourne. Meanwhile, Osbourne really barely threw anything back. Midway through the round, Erceg takes Osbourne down, manages to hold dominant positioning for the rest of the fight, getting a really close to locking in a rear naked choke, then a face crank, and then at the end starts nailing him with 2 big shots from ground and pound that if the fight was any longer, I think probably could have had the potential to finish Osbourne. But either way, it goes to the scorecards. Erceg takes a 29-28, which I thought was going to be so much closer than it was. I could actually see an argument that Osbourne won that fight as well, which is kind of sad to say. And listen, right, while it wasn't one of Erceg's more dominant wins, in fact, some people could say he lost, but the fact that a lot of people were sort of expecting an Erceg finish in this one, I'm going to chalk it up to the weight difference. I think bantamweight is not Erceg's division. I hope that he doesn't stay at bantamweight and moves back down to flyweight. I hope this was a one-time thing for him, because he looked tiny out there. Osbourne looked significantly bigger, and was hitting Erceg with some really big damage that Erceg looked like he wasn't really prepared for. We've never really seen Erceg get wobbled outside that Cachoeira France like he did in this fight. And it's not even against a Moreno or a Cachoeira France or Pantoja. It's against an Osbourne. So kind of a concerning performance, but it's still a win. Good to see him back in the win column, and we'll move on to the main event. And now on to the main event, Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. So I had it that Roman Dolidze was going to win this one by a decision win. Looking back, I don't know why. I did think that he was the better striker of the two, and I could see him having enough defensive wrestling. We've kind of seen that to deal with any grappling threat from Hernandez, even though Hernandez is probably one of the better grapplers in the UFC. I had faith in Dolidze. Turns out this was an Anthony Hernandez win. He won this one very, very convincingly, kind of a dog walk. One of the more dominant main events we've seen this year, and he finished it with a round 4 submission. So breaking it down, first round, surprisingly the fight stood staying on the feet for most of this round. In fact, for most of the fight, it was a striking battle between the two, which I thought was kind of strange. But it kind of worked out. There'd be moments in this round where Hernandez would land big on the head of Dolidze and chop at the front leg, deal that damage early on to the front leg that we see add up later on. Dolidze would land back though. He'd land these unorthodox elbows. His main shots were these weird sneaky ones that would sort of push through the guard or go over the top, land on Hernandez. But Hernandez has a pretty good chin. He'd just kind of eat them. And I think what pushed Hernandez forward and won him this round in particular was his takedowns. On top of the damage he was doing on the feet, he scored a few takedowns this round. Took a decent part of this round in control time and ultimately just won that round through that. I think this was probably the closest round of the fight, and you could maybe argue Dolidze won it, but kind of a stretch. Round 2 opens up. Dolidze opens the round by kicking to the legs and body of Hernandez. He's trying early on to deal damage there and get him a bit tired, but very early on he gets taken down, to which Dolidze tries to pull the same leg lock that he's constantly been trying throughout the fight. In the first round, whenever they'd separate from the grappling and Hernandez would stand up, he'd sort of grab the leg, try and get a leg lock, but Hernandez would sort of walk away, point to the ref, get the fight back up to the feet, and from there, Hernandez would just start taking over. He was eating all the Dolidze's shots when they would trade in these messy exchanges, deal some really big damage of his own, and this is the round where we start to see Dolidze grabbing the cage and cheating. He tried to deny takedowns throughout the fight by grabbing the cage. This was the first instance where during a takedown midway through the round, he grabbed the cage. Herb Dean noticed, instantly pulled his hand away from the cage, gave him a warning. Hernandez takes him down anyway, and this was a clear Hernandez round, with him hurting Dolidze badly to the point where he was tired, running away, being pulled down with his body locks and almost finished with ground and pound in the closing seconds. Hernandez thinking he won the fight. Actually, that's how bad this ground and pound was. Dolidze wasn't defending himself at all. The bell goes off. Herb Dean jumps in, separates them. But because Dolidze was just taking these shots and not defending himself, Hernandez thought it was a TKO victory. Stands up, celebrates with his corner. Turns out it was the end of the round, so not quite, but that's how dominant this performance was. Round 3 opens up. Almost instantly, Hernandez gets a body lock and takes Dolidze down. Dolidze has no answer to the wrestling this whole fight pretty much, but especially in these later rounds. And whenever they'd separate, he'd just pull guard, try and get that same leg lock, and then just get denied and stand back up again. This was another round where Dolidze grabs the cage. Hernandez tries to take him down again, and even with that, Dolidze manages to still get pulled down despite grabbing the cage. And he just constantly gets kneed to the back of the leg, to the body, ties him out even more. This was up against the cage. And to definitively take the round in the final minute, he dazes Dolidze big with his heavy right, folded him over and forced Dolidze to wrestle for the rest of the round, exhausting him even further. Honestly, I had it 3-0 Hernandez at this point, maybe 2-1, but still. And then in the 4th round, Dolidze's hurt badly, exhausted. Hernandez having options for targets. He could kick the leg, take that out. He could kick the body, tire him out even more. Target the head where he'd daze and wobble Dolidze. And not only does Dolidze grab the inside of the gloves of Hernandez when they're wrestling, which is sort of halfway through the round, but when he tries to get taken down again, it's the 3rd time he grabs the cage while being taken down. Herb deducts a point. He doesn't separate them though. And Hernandez does use his chance to pull Dolidze away from the cage with a rear naked choke. It wasn't completely locked in, but Dolidze instantly taps to it. It was more of that he quit than it was choke him out. Granted, give it a few more seconds, he probably would have been submitted, but he was sort of just pulling him with that sort of grip. But either way, Dolidze taps, ends the fight in the 4th round. Really, really dominant performance from Hernandez. I wasn't really aware of how good his striking is. His grappling credentials were only solidified in this fight, but he also showed that he has some very impressive striking and a very good chin as well. And after seeing this well-roundedness, I think that a next fight for him could be RDR. I actually really like the idea of Reina de Ritter. They're both very well-rounded. Recently, we've seen that Reina de Ritter has amazing striking and wrestling, and we've seen that Hernandez has amazing striking at wrestling, so why not just put them together, and next one gets a #1 contender fight. An alternate opponent, I wouldn't mind to see Israel Adesanya or really anyone within the top 5, maybe even the loser of Imavov Bahario, but my first pick would definitely be Reina de Ritter. I would love to see that fight as a headline fight night. As for Dolidze, this was a pretty horrendous performance, not only cheating multiple times, but also sticking to a game plan that clearly wasn't working and getting gassed out within probably the 2nd or 3rd round if we're being generous. and he just never adjusted to the fight that Hernandez was bringing to him. His next fight should probably be on someone like Abus Magomedov, bottom of the rankings territory, something like that, but man, this was a horrendous performance from him. Good win for Hernandez, bad loss for Dolidze. Yeah, so that's it guys, that was UFC Fight Night, Dolidze versus Hernandez, and a recap of everything that happened this event. How did we do on predictions this week? Yeah, better than usual I suppose. I got 67% of my who would win predictions correct. Of that I got the method by 50%, so pretty standard week. Cam actually did way better this week. He got 83% of his predictions correct on who would win. Only really missing out with Dolidze in the main event and Cody Brundage to open the card as well, so kind of got bookend there. Where do I rank this card? This one's tricky for me because last week, similar card in the Apex, no real name value, kind of an average main event to put it lightly. And while that would usually go near D, it had 2 Fight of the Year contenders that really carried it. This didn't really have that. It had a few fun knockouts. In fact, early on the prelims, it had 3 back-to-back first-round finishes. So there were moments. I wouldn't put it near Blanchfield Barber or Emmett Murphy because those were really, really bad events. They were kind of hard to watch consistently from start to end. This had its moments, a lot of boring-ish fights, so I wouldn't put it above 312 or Dolidze versus Vettori because those had a lot of consistently good performances, so I'm going to chuck in the middle there, right below 312. This card, while it had no name value and it's in the Apex and the co-main was Erceg versus Osbourne and there weren't many ranked fighters, it had its moments. There were also some fights that were kind of less than fun to watch. Particularly so the wrestling ones. It started off on a pretty weak point as well to add that onto it. So yeah, just a kind of average to low tier card. Next week UFC 319, actually very excited for that one. I'll get a prediction video out for that soon. And yeah, see you guys next week. Bye bye.